Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lillia McEnaney, and I am an assistant curator at the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture. And as you all know, we are here to continue our lecture series surrounding our current exhibition, Clearly Indigenous Native Visions Reimagined in Glass. To begin, I'd like to briefly acknowledge the place where this conversation is happening, even though we are in a virtual space and not physically at the museum today, in Ogopoge within the Tewa world. As a non-native person living in so-called Santa Fe, I am a guest in the ancestral homelands of the Tewa communities, and I wish to acknowledge all of the Indigenous people and communities, Pueblo, Diné, Apache, and so many others, past, present, and future, who walk on these lands and steward these places. And I would encourage everybody watching here today to reflect on the lands on which they reside. Hi, Lillian.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Okay, great. So we are so pleased to be joined this morning by Carol Lujan and Lillian Pitt. A recording of this program will be made available on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks, so please keep an eye out for that on our Facebook page and in our monthly newsletter. We will also have announcements for future programs around this exhibition in both of those places. And we have about an hour with both Lillian and Carol today, so I'm really excited to hear these two wonderful artists in conversation. So Carol, can you speak up for a second to make sure that we can hear you?
Hi, I'm excited to be here, and thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody at MIAC for the wonderful work that they've been doing in terms of the glass exhibit.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, thank you all. Lillian and Carol, I wanted to start off the conversation today by talking about how you started to work in glass and just kind of what brought you into this medium. So Lillian, would you like to start us off?
Sure. It started about 15 years ago with cast glass, and usually I work in clay, but there was this glass collector, and he wanted to have a piece of glass done by Rick Bartow and myself. And so he set up a couple of workshops for us to take cast glass casting, and to do something for, it would be for him, of course. And so we said, yeah, we have lots to do, but this sounded like fun. And so that was my first touch with glass, and it has been a wonderful ride since. And I was able to use my my casting things for the bronzes, and then have them switch over to glass because the editions were finished, and I didn't throw out my bronze molds, and so don't tell anybody. So, but anyway, I'm joking. It was really enjoyable because I could see my regular pieces from clay to bronze to glass. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this forever, but it was expensive. And so I had to make other pieces to make my way to do casting. And then there was a workshop at Evergreen Longhouse in 2017 or 15, one of those. And Dan Friday was in between the buildings at the Longhouse at Evergreen. And then Joe Feddersen was there getting his work prepared. And he says, you ought to try this. And I said, oh, me? Oh, I never thought this would ever happen, because I thought just you have to be an elite artist. And I didn't feel like I was there yet. And so to work in blown glass. And so I did. And he said, just cut out some stencils. And so I ran up to I was doing printmaking. I ran up to the printmaking studio, started cutting out stencils, and ran back. And when it was my turn, Dan Friday arranged them, and he did it. And I watched everything, and it was just like magic happening. And I fell in love with glass blowing. And and it's given me a whole new medium to continue to explore honoring my ancestors.
What about it felt magical to you? Like, what was it about that process that really
Oh,
spoke to you?
just seeing it evolve. You know, it's like a raku firing. You know, you can just see it evolve into something just very beautiful when you're finished. And so, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Carol, would you be able to answer the same question? How did you start working in glass? And could you tell us a little bit about your trajectory as an artist?
Well, first of all, I was a clay artist. I still work with clay. And so when I was on sabbaticals and during my summer breaks from the university, I would take workshops up in Santa Fe at the clay workshop that they used to have. And one person was showing us how to make clay molds to use with fused glass. And I had never worked with glass before, but I've always been fascinated by glass. I just love the brilliance of it and the colors of glass.
Mhm.
So I had no intention of working with glass. I was mainly interested in perfecting my clay, which for me takes forever to perfect anything. But the instructor did bring some scraps of glass there for us to play with and work with, and then he would fire it for us. So I just put these little pieces together and started cutting glass, and I didn't think much of it. He put it in the kiln. There was like 15 of us in the class, put our pieces in the kiln. And then the next day when we picked up our pieces, I was just amazed by how the colors just were so amazing. And ever since then, I kept working with glass as long as I was working with clay too. And that was in 2014. And then I got a big commission from Buffalo Thunder to make these Navajo inspired glass rugs that I've been doing. And so that, ever since then, I haven't stopped working with glass. I love the color. I love the way the light hits it and it seems to just come alive. That's how I started working with it.
Wonderful. I think that idea of perfection is really interesting when thinking about glass, and especially when put into conversation with clay. And I hear a lot of clay artists always talking about the clay having a mind of its own and its own intention of what it wants to be. And I'm wondering, Carol, is that something that you experience in glass?
Glass I guess you could say it's the same in terms of when you cut the glass. I work with what they call warm glass, but I've also done glass casting, and I've done a combination of what they call roll-ups, and I send some slides so you can show examples of that. And that's combining fused glass, warm glass with glass blowing. But what was the question? The perfection.
Yeah.
It's most of the time when I work with glass, I do get what I expect that I would get once it's fused and completed. But sometimes I do get surprises, and they're always wonderful surprises. So I not that I'm a perfectionist, but I just do enjoy those surprises that do happen too when I'm working with with either clay or with glass.
Lillian, would you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Carol and I are joined at the hip, I think. So we feel the same way. And my pieces, my blown pieces, I like, because I start out with cutting glass that's about 3 inches tall, and to see it go into a vessel and see it contort and move around, and with the blowing process, and to see what kind of shapes come out. you couldn't be a perfectionist if you got 3-inch pieces, it should be 3-inch pieces. And so, but just accepting what's going to happen is part of the joy of doing blown glass.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's really evident in the exhibition and just seeing how all of these different forms kind of take on a life of their own. So Carol, I would love to talk to you about some individual pieces. You were able to put together a slideshow, so I would like to share my screen. And then Carol, if we can talk through some of those, that would be fantastic. Carol, I don't know if you want to start by talking about your studio.
This is up at Taos Pueblo. My husband's from Taos, and we converted his grandmother's house into a clay studio. So that's where myself and my daughter and granddaughter, we sometimes spend the weekends there and get to just work on our clay with no disturbances, because there's, we don't have a TV in there or anything. It's just for our studio.
Great.
And this is myself and my daughter and granddaughter at the Heard Museum, and my granddaughter got her first big ribbon there in 2018.
Wow.
That's a great picture.
And that was for her clay sculpture. You can't really see it, but she's holding her little clay horse that she made.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And this is my very first piece that I ever made. Again, it's when I went to the workshop in Santa Fe, and he had some scraps and let us cut glass. So I just put that together, and I was really amazed at how it came out. I was so surprised.
It's spectacular. It's really hard to believe that that was your first piece.
I say my first pieces of I've got the first piece of my glass, and then I have a first piece of clay that I ever sculpted when I was in kindergarten.
Wow. So can we talk a little bit about this process of fused glass? I think a lot of people would be really interested to hear in what that looks like for you.
Well, I go to the glass warehouse and I pick out different colors of sheet glass. And usually I get the 24 by 24 sheet glass. And then I cut those pieces into designs. And I think the next slide will show the cut pieces in the kiln. And sometimes I work in the kiln too. I'll put finishing touches on my pieces when they're in the kiln before they get fired. And then the next slide shows after they've been fired, I put them on clay molds, and then they get placed in the kiln again and get refired, and that gives them the shape. And again, this is one of my glass weavings. It's inspired by my grandmother's weaving, and also by the chief blankets design of the Navajo in the 1800s.
Now, how do you present this, when you're at market or in the gallery? Because I notice it has different shapes to it.
Yes, I place it on a stand. So the ones that were,
I see it now. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the ones that I made for Buffalo Thunder Casino and Resort, those were 3 feet by 2 feet. And they had somebody to hang them because I don't install them. Those are just too big and too heavy for me to deal with by myself. So they hired somebody to place them up on the walls. But this one here and the ones that I usually have at the shows are 12 by 14 and a half or 15. So, they fit easily on a stand and they're easy to move around.
Yeah, the ones we have at MIAC in Clearly Indigenous are at about a 45-degree angle. They're pretty flat on the surface of the pedestal.
Mhm.
And these are just absolutely spectacular pieces.
Yeah.
They're mind-blowing to me. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your grandmother's weaving and how that has influenced your approach to art making.
Well, it's real interesting because my mother is one of the boarding school generation. She was removed from her family. And so she didn't, basically when she was, I think, 10 or 11, they removed her from her family, along with some of her other siblings. So she didn't grow up weaving like my grandmother did. And we would go visit my grandmother, and every time we would visit her, she was always weaving. And that's how she supported the family, was with her weavings. She didn't speak English and I didn't speak Navajo, so my mother would interpret for us. But I was always just fascinated just to sit there and watch her weave. For me, it was real soothing to watch her do her weaving.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And then this is one of the glass masks that I make, and it's inspired by the Navajo deities, the Diné deities. And I make them in various colors. None of them are duplicates. They all have their individuality. They all come out different. Even if I want to try to make them similar, they do their own thing.
Yep. Oh, wow.
And then this is a panel. I do panels. This is about 12 by 20. I do them like 12 by 24 or 12 by 20. And I have prickly pears around my house in Arizona. And in the spring, the hummingbirds come around, and they're always going after the nectar in prickly pears. So I just, was one day just was really watching them, and it was so beautiful. So I thought I'd try to replicate that with my glass, and it came out okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The vibrancy in the hummingbirds is incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then this is it's inspired by the Pueblo culture. I've been living with the Pueblos for I don't know how many years. I hate to say how many years. But I forget what I titled this. I think it's like the cultural barriers, or I forget what it was that I titled it. But, again, it's just inspired by my surroundings, by my culture, by other Native cultures, and by nature.
Beautiful. My.
And then this is a fused glass rectangular bowl, and I like using dichroic glass in my pieces. I think it just makes them stand out even more.
Can you tell us a little bit more about dichroic glass for those who may not know?
It has metal in it, and that's what makes it shinier than glass. It's sort of like a metallic looking glass. And it's, I think Lillian mentioned it. Glass is pretty pricey. It's pretty expensive. And dichroic glass is even more expensive than fused glass.
Great.
And this is obviously a round shaped bowl. And again, I've used dragonflies in a lot of my work. And I think the reason why I use them is because my clan is the Big Water clan, and dragonflies love water, and I love dragonflies. I think they're very graceful, and they're the only creatures that can fly upside down and backwards. And this is fused glass plate with a gold decal in it, and also with some dichro. And I noticed that when I'm working with glass, I go through different phases of color. Right now, I think I'm in my purple color. Prior to that, I was in this green color, but my basic color seems to always be blue. But right now, I'm working with purples and lavenders.
It's a spectacular palette. I love the lighter purple on the edge of it. It's just really wonderful.
Your photography, do you do your own photography too?
Yes, I do. I finally learned how to work with glass. It's really hard to take photographs of glass because you get that reflection.
Yep.
And I got a photo cube or box, whatever you call it, and I put my pieces in there, and then I adjust the lighting in the box, and then once I take the photo, then I try to liven it up with these all little extras you get with your iPhone. It's all taken with an iPhone.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you do a beautiful job.
Well, I took photography too. I've done so many mediums in art. I've done photography, clay, and glass.
Wow. Well, you excel in all of them. Wow.
I enjoy all of them.
Gosh, that's beautiful.
And then these are panels that I do. These are unframed panels. I also do some panels that are framed, but I didn't include any photographs of those. And they're, using the geometric designs that my grandmother used in her rugs. And this I'm really proud of. It's a collaborative work between me and my granddaughter. She's now 15 and she loves to draw. So I had her draw on this, what do they call them? They're these art boards. And then I did fused glass and I put it on top of the art board and the drawings that she did.
It's spectacular.
They're small pieces. They're 4 inches by 4 inches.
Oh my.
Wow. I'm
always thinking of things to do, different things to do.
What was the process of collaborating with your granddaughter like?
Since she's always doing sketches. So I asked her, I said, do you want to do some collaborative work with me? Because she also does clay. And I started her working on fused glass too. So since she was always sketching, I gave her the art board to do a little sketch on, and that's what she came up with. And then, so I put a piece of fused glass together and made a few little designs on it and put it in the kiln, fired it, and glued it on top of her art.
Spectacular.
Really nice.
Thank you. And this is one of the few pieces, well, I just put my clay piece there because I wanted to show, that with doing my glass casting, I did a clay cast first of the next slide that you'll see, which is the glass casting, that one. I did that in clay first, which I'm sure Lillian knows what I'm talking about with that. Did that in clay first, and then mix this plaster over the clay sculpture, the clay mask before it dries, and then put the plaster over that and got the impression on that plaster cast. And then I put the glass in there and put it in the kiln and melted all of that. So that was one of my glass castings that I've done.
Wonderful. I love that purple color as well.
Yeah. Purple face.
Definitely.
And these are just fun little casting hearts that I did, and I placed some dichroic dragonflies on them.
Those are nice.
They're cute.
I want a couple of them, so
Oh,
we'll have to talk later.
Okay. And then the roll-up technique that I was talking about, this is an example of it. And it's, first I made the fused glass piece, and they come out flat, and it's like 6 layers, 4 or 6 layers of glass. And it's a rectangular piece. In this instance, I think that piece was like 10 by 6 or something like that. And then I have, actually, he's an instructor at Santa Fe Community College. I had him help me do the roll-up, where he has a glass studio, hot glass studio, and he did the roll-up for me. So we came out with a nice vase. And like you were saying, Lillian, it's, what you begin with ends up different than what you think it would be once they do the glass blowing.
What about this piece did you think would be different?
Well, it came out, well, like I said, it's like a flat piece of glass. And I didn't, I knew that it was going to be a vase, but I wasn't sure how big it was going to be and what it would look like when it was completed.
Yeah, it's spectacular. And there are those dragonflies again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and these are my little cubes. And what I did is I did some watercolors on these art boards, and then I did my fused glass and I placed them over it. So those are just fun little panels that I play with once in a while. And these are, again, some more small fused glass bowls with feather decals, gold feather decals, and dichroic glass.
It's beautiful.
And this is what they call a long glass channel plate. Again, with my dragonflies and geometric rug designs.
Beautiful.
And last but not least, pendants, which I'm wearing one of them. Use glass.
Oh, that's very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. Isn't it fun how it goes from one thing to, oh, I think I'll try another thing. And oh, I think I'll try another thing. And it works out. And now what am I going to do forever? Then you go to market and then they want what you have the least of,
No, I know.
So Lillian, to shift the conversation a little bit, can you tell us more about your process and your current projects and what you're working on?
Okay. When I know I'm going to do some glass blowing, which is finding a studio, finding Dan Friday's time, and then when that's done, then I'm trying to think what I want to do. So then I go to my computer guy, and then he makes all these images of all the things that I want. And I've got pictures of them, and there's just like 150 of them. And then they're cut out in glass. And so they're all like 2 to 3 inches tall. And then I start, I've got pizza boxes to put them in. And then I start making my designs per piece. So I have to figure out how many pieces am I going to have blown. So then I just kind of sketch them out and go clear, imagine it going clear around, and just sketch them out, lay them out, which is what I like doing. And then after that's done, I have all my pizza boxes. And then I take it to the studio, and then everybody gets happy. Oh, pizza coming, pizza coming. And I said, no, it's glass. So they get disappointed. And so it was fun doing that first entrance, to shock everybody, because they thought they were getting lots of pizza. I'm kind of a jokester sometimes. And so then we start getting the the glazing area. That's, I don't know, I forget the term for it. And then so we start shaking the color on over these glass pieces, and then put them on a place that will heat it up. And then we pick a color for it, and then so it's all comes out to rolling it into what I have, and then the process of blowing, which takes quite a while, and so then you watch your figures kind of form and get warped, and it's just really exciting. And then it goes into the kiln to cool slowly. And so then I don't see it anymore. So, because I'm usually in Everett, Washington, or Seattle, Washington, and so I have to rely on Dan. He works so hard to gather them up for me and take them to the glass cleaner, the glass polisher, to finish them up and make them beautiful. Then he has to take them to the photographer, which is his photographer and Preston Singletary's photographer. And I just feel like, oh gosh, I'm a big time person now. And then it's time to market them, and I get busy with galleries, sending them pictures, and NAYA, Native American Youth and Family Association, purchases a lot of my work to sell in their auction, and they bought 8 pieces. And I was really happy, but I thought, oh my God, there goes my inventory. Now I've got to start over again and arrange for Dan to pick a time. He's in New York now at Corning doing a wonderful glass workshop there. So I have to wait till he gets all his job done there, and has all these honorings and stuff. And so I'm sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting. And so that's the one process. And what I did, what I just finished, is a public art in Lake Oswego. And it's a Mobius strip, a giant Mobius strip. And it's 13 feet long and 6 feet wide, and it's hanging in City Hall. And but we took it to Ben Dye's place, his big studio barn, and so we laid out what I wanted to have on the Mobius, and we had to be careful that it was, wasn't cut out enough to distort the image. And so and so we got all that stuff, and then there were 4 cutout areas, and that's where we put the dichroic glass, so on each corner kind of, and then made it important images, of my ancestors, and it was the title of it was This Land Remembers. And Lake Oswego is 90% white, and but thousands of years ago, all of us Indians would go there to the Willamette River, and we would fish and hunt and gather, and we did that for thousands of years, and so then we did a topographical map of that and put that over everything. And then Juno did not sand casting. He did, oh gosh, no, I hate it when my mind goes blank. Anyway, he blew dust over it. What do you call it? You know what it is, Carol?
No.
You blow dust in, and then you're all covered up, and because it's it's like dust blowing, and then it etches in the image into the material, And so we did that and then spray painted it, and then we did powder coating and spray painted it again, and then delivered it. And so, sandblasting. Thank you, Patu. My niece helped me. So, and so he did that, and it made it all just beautiful. And then they installed it, and there was about 1 inch on each side. It wouldn't fit in the elevator, so they had to walk it up two flights of stairs, and with one inch on each side, and they didn't harm it and got it up. And then we went to the lighting specialist, and he has this tube that goes around and around, somewhat like a Mobius strip, but they work together. And so it was just a really wonderful experience for me, using just combining everything, made my mind work.
That's incredible. Is that still available for public viewing?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
So it's just Lake Oswego Arts Association. So
fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Okay.
One thing that I would like to talk a little bit more with both of you about is your backgrounds in more of academia and the academic world and universities. So Carol, would you be able to tell us a little bit about how your work at ASU has impacted the way that you think about art making?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure that it reflects my art. I received my PhD from the University of New Mexico. And as soon as I got the PhD, Arizona State University hired me as an assistant professor in the School of Justice Studies at the time. And there were like maybe at the most a handful of Native scholars at the university. I think there were maybe 5 or 6 of us. And although Arizona State University sits in the heart of Indian country, there was no Indian Studies program there. So a number of us faculty, Native faculty, decided to see if we can start a Native Studies program. So we did, and we finally got that approved in 2001 as a degree granting program. And so I was named the first director for that program. And I stayed at Arizona State University for 26 years, and then I retired. But like I mentioned earlier, during my sabbaticals and during summer breaks, I would always go back to my artwork. And I don't really see the connection between my time at ASU as an academic and my time right now as an artist, a full-time artist. But I'm sure that there is. I think the connection that I could see right now is it's a good way to inform and educate the general public, just based on the art that I do right now. Just to tell them, the history behind what I'm working on and why I do my work. I guess that would be the connection. And then usually at the shows here in the Southwest, I run into my former students, and it's just fun to see them. They're attorneys right now. They've got their law degrees. They're practicing law, and they come by my booth to say hello. And it's really nice to see them.
Lillian, what about you?
Oh my. I've been mostly educated by my community. I'm a project of my community, and but I first started out as a hairdresser, and then a teacher in hair cutting and hairstyling, and so and that went on until I had up to 7 back surgeries. So I was on the 4th one when I had to retire. So So I did hair at home, and then I went to Mount Hood Community College and thought I'd be a dental hygienist. Well, they didn't accept me because of my back. And so I went on down the line, and I sure understand rejection now. And so it kind of helped me with rejection. And so the only one that accepted me was the mental health human services program. And of course, it had been 20 years since I'd been to school because I was a hairdresser and teacher. So I didn't realize I had a brain. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do have a brain. And it was just, college was just, learning was just so magical. And I just loved it that I got like 20 extra credits because I didn't want to quit. And so, yeah, I was kind of a brat. And then I took ceramics at that time, fell in love with clay. It was just magical, but I couldn't throw on the wheel because of my back. So they said to hand build. And then that was frustrating because my cup handles would never stay on their cups. And so I thought, well, this is not a job for me. I can't do this. Then somebody said, well, do something else. And we have some masks from the Northwest Coast on the wall. I'll make a mask. And I did, and it was love at first touch. And I made 5 pieces and had this show at a small gallery where R.C. Gorman was showing. And he bought 2 of my masks, and we kept in touch. He kept in touch with me and gave me advice and sent me books and was just an amazing, wonderful, supportive soul to me. Invited me to his parties to meet all his wealthy customers, and it was just really a wonderful event for me to go to, out of my element completely. And so that made me realize that you can be anything you want to be if you work hard enough. And so that was a wonderful learning experience. And I thought I'd give it a year to, I was already accepted in the social worker program. And I thought I'll give it a year. Well, that's been 42 years ago. So I don't have to be a social worker now. And so, but it helps with interviewing skills. It helps helps me talk to people. And when my mind's working, because I'm 79 years old now and still working and still talking to people, and it goes blank like it did. And then I get frustrated. And so, but my community made me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. In reading about you and about your work, I was so interested about your career as a hairstylist and teaching hair. And I was wondering if you ever have forayed into teaching glass.
No, but teaching it was really fun because you taught balance and you taught, the different varieties of hair, head shapes and all that stuff, So it was really, I loved it. I would still be doing it if my back was good.
What about you, Carol? Have you thought about teaching glass?
Oh,
I still have so much to learn.
Yeah.
That's what I really like too about glass is there's so many things that I still need to learn about, how to do different techniques, and I want to learn how to do better casting. I find that really fascinating, the casting process, because I could do wax casting, or like I did with the mask, I can do clay. And I'd like to learn more about that. I think that's probably the next phase, is to work on my casting techniques.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes out of that. Lillian, is there something that you see next on your horizon?
I've got 2 more public art jobs that I've got to do, and I've got a couple of shows trying to keep it local. on the coast and in Eugene. So I've got to get work. I send them prints and jewelry and clay work and glass work when I have it. And so it's all kinds of mediums. So I'm never bored, so I'll get it ready.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. We have a little bit more time to chat. Is there anything else that either of you would like to touch upon or talk with MIAC audiences about?
I don't think so.
Well, Carol, you are going to be at the herd market this weekend, correct?
Yes, the temperature today is going to be like close to 90, but the weekend it's going to be in the 60s. So that'll be pleasant because I'm used to that temperature coming from New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am fully ready to be in warmer weather.
Well, I should come down today, but this weekend it's going to cool off.
And Lillian, you are not going to be there, correct?
Oh, no. I've kind of given up traveling, given the virus and given my bad back. And so I'm staying close to home and just hitting the studio and going to a Fort Vancouver gift shop where they carry my work, my little works. And so.
Well, fantastic. So for those in the audience who have not yet seen the exhibition, please do come by the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture on Museum Hill in Santa Fe. The exhibition will be up for a few more months, so you still have time to check out the incredible show and the accompanying catalog, which has incredible biographical information on everybody included in the exhibition. So thank you, Lillian and Carol, for your time and expertise. I've learned so much from both of you this morning, and I hope to talk to you both soon.